Welcome to the Inspection Empire Builder podcast. On this episode, we are talking all things financial. You don't want to miss it. And welcome to the show. I'm so glad you tuned in today. Today we're hanging out with Erin, and we're talking about numbers within the business. This is something that every business owner needs to have their mind and their eyes wrapped around. Erin, I'm so glad to have you here today. How are you?
I'm great. And happy to be here.
Yes, I know we see each other at events all the time. And within IEB, you have a lot of webinars and things that you're doing talking about numbers within the business. But we've actually not had this conversation on the podcast yet. And so I'm really glad to have you here to talk about this stuff.
Always happy to talk about numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I can count to 20 now because I count my fingers and my toes. And so,
I have a nickname in the IEB community. They call me Numbers.
Numbers. What's up, Numbers? You need to have a sideways hat, like a rapper.
Exactly.
Wicka. I'm Numbers. Yeah. So I like that. That's funny. Yeah. So you always have good numbers and you have deep insights of things that I really like. We love to talk about. A lot of times it's easy for business owners to pull up a P&L sheet real quick and go, oh, here's my revenue. Here's my profit. And you go, well, I'm making a rough percentage of what you think you should be making. And I think in home service businesses in general, people think like 20% is roughly a good number to have in profit. But in the home inspection industry, we are a different kind of animal, a different kind of beast. But there's so much more in numbers that you need to be aware of. And so what are some of the general categories that people should be looking at beyond just the standard P&L report?
Right. Well, on the P&L report, there are a number of things you can look at. We can get into that right now if you want to get into what I like to look at on a P&L. That top line revenue number you see on a P&L, let's just say it's $1 million. I see a dozen or 2 dozen numbers behind that number. So,
right.
It's not just what your revenue is, it's like your quality of your revenue. Does that revenue line up with ISN or Spector or whatever you're using for your scheduling software? If those 2 numbers don't line up, where is the money? And then we've got all the numbers in the P&L, and then we've got your profit. But I'm also a fan of running a cash flow statement at the same time, just to make sure that you've got, they say revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that.
I didn't come up with it, but I say it all the time.
Well, I'm going to quote you on it, so I'll give you all the credit. But it's true, when you're hanging out with, with the guys or with the people or the other business owners, they always like to go well, this is how much revenue I made. This is how big my company is, and if you're making $1 million in revenue and you have $80,000 in profit, it's ooh, yikes, that maybe something's off there, Yeah. And right. And so sometimes we'd like to talk about the revenue number but then the profit number says a lot. And then, how much cash do you have too? Yeah. Because if the business is making $400,000 a year and I'm taking 390 of it, right. And there's only $10,000 in the bank, right? That's also not healthy.
This is actually something we see with our solo operators in the community. Is being a solo operator is a great gig. It really is, right? Because you don't, especially if you're answering your own phone, you're doing your own marketing. Aside from some fuel and tools and lab fees, you keep the rest.
Right. And very high margin. Yeah.
Yeah, very high margin. So it's still important to know the cost of every inspection, know all your lab fees, those numbers minimally. But then, once you add one team member or a call center, or you update your software, or you need to buy an IR camera or any of those things, once you start the path to growth, you've got to get a little more intimately familiar with what's happening in your financials.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you got to know your numbers within different departments within your company.
Yeah.
And so when I started my home inspection company, it was just me solo. It was awesome. Just like you said, keep some gas in the truck. I had this old paid off Tacoma. There was no truck payment. It was, basic. It was a 1999 Tacoma. It was green. It had rust all over it. And I scraped off the TA and left it just to say to taco, instead of Tacoma or whatever at the end of it. And I called it I called it my green rusty taco. And that's what I started my business in. It was just me and I, you go buy some tools and stuff, but you got ladders and, whatever, but you have that initial investment of buying equipment and tools. And then after that, it's such a high margin thing. I'm literally trading my time for dollars and my expertise for dollars. And it was great. And so then I had so much work, I thought I'd hire some people. And right before I hired I was literally interviewing for people. And who called me? I think it was Greg Bryan. It was the beginning of IEB, and they were cold calling inspectors looking for hey, we're going to start this network. And on that cold call he called me. It was him and Dirk that were making these calls from the very beginning. Yeah. And Greg called me and I was like, I don't know. I'm about to hire my first guy. And he's like, oh yeah, what are you going to do? And so I started talking, and over the phone, just instantly, he's like, hey, make sure you put the pay in the right structure. And he did the cost of an inspector with me over the phone super fast. Yeah. And it saved my bacon. Yeah. I took some notes and I hired my first people. I didn't join IEB, but but it saved my bacon, because otherwise you hear it all the time. Guys will hire their first few employees and they'll be like, there's so much money here. I'll just split it with you. How about 50-50? You get half, I get half, or I'll pay you 70%. I get 30%, as the owner. And then you realize, oh, there's way more costs in hiring people than you maybe anticipate. Yeah.
It's not sustainable. It's not. You just, if you think about wanting to make 20% profit margin and you start with 60% to an inspector, that gives you want to keep 20%, that only gives you 20% to spend on everything else, like the lab fees, the fuel, the vehicles, insurances, marketing, phones, answering, office, like everything. It's virtually not possible from what I've seen. And I've seen a lot of businesses to be in it for 60% to your inspectors and have a high profit.
It's impossible. Yeah. And for some of these guys, some guys that get started in this business, it's the first company they've ever owned or the first time they've ever hired an employee. And what you don't realize until you've gone down this path is that the cost of that person is way more, because there is payroll taxes that come out of the employee's check, but there's payroll taxes that you pay as the employer above and beyond that. And so, you all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, I have to pay not just what I'm paying them, but then above and beyond on the payroll taxes. Right. Well, then there's workman's comp insurance. There's other government imposed taxes, fees, and insurances that they mandate you carry as the employer. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, that 60% is actually costing me 70% because of the extra stuff there.
Right.
And then, it just quickly turns into, oh man, there's a whole lot more expenses. And then you have 2 guys, 3 guys. Well, I need someone to help answer the phone. Right. There's no profit.
Yeah.
There's no way to have somebody do that.
One of my fellow IEB coaches, Philippe Heller, great guy, great.
Yeah.
Philippe said once on a call, it was so impactful and I never forgot it. He said, splitting 50-50 is like saying, okay, we're going to be business partners and I'm going to split this with you 50-50. But I'm going to pay all the bills and take all the risk.
Yep.
Doesn't seem so equal, does it?
No, it really isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, because that employee can say, I'm not going to do this anymore and walk away. And you as the owner are left with all the liability on your back. Yeah. And
this is something people have a hard time conveying to their inspectors too, where their inspectors, maybe they hired somebody and your inspector obviously sees the ticket because they need to know where to go to do the job. And they see $600 and they know what they're getting paid. And they're like, well, why don't I just go out on my own and I'll keep the $600 for myself? But you never keep all of it. Not even if you're solo. You probably keep more, but if you're solo. But what you can't do is if you do go out on your own, you can keep the whole fee. But there are days of the week where you can't inspect because you've got to be out there in offices talking to real estate agents, doing your marketing, paying your taxes, like all this kind of stuff. So like I was self-employed for a very long time. I'd spent a lot of my week doing marketing. That was how I spent a lot of my time. I didn't bill out 40 hours a week. Right.
Yeah. It's really hard to do that when you're self-employed because there's so many hours that you put in that aren't billable hours that you have to be working on the back end. Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. And so I have, I have a good sized team of inspectors now. And one of them had his own business. He was a solo inspector and he shut it down to come work for me because he basically said like, the numbers don't work. And so he comes in and he's the greatest advocate in the sense for my entire team. They all see him and he talks about it. He's like, going out on your own isn't what it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
He's like, I did it for 5 years. He's like, I'm happier now. My wife is happier now. My kids are happier now. He actually makes more money now working for me than he did on his own, because our system is so dialed in. And he's like, he always talks about how amazing it is to be working at the company versus doing it on your own. And so for me, it's awesome having him on the team, because if any of my guys are thinking like, I see the ticket, I see what I'm making, they listen to the guy on the team that's like, dude, I did it on my own for years. I promise you, this is the best gig you can have. And I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm just so grateful to have that guy on my team. And I have another guy that worked for other companies and he came over, and again, we've got our stuff set up in such a way that he's making more money and he's happier working with us now. And so I love that I have both of those guys like fully bought into the business, because if somebody's thinking about, I want to jump ship to another company, I got one guy from another company who constantly talks about how great it is here. And I got another guy who had his own business, talks about how great it is here. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to keep those guys happy no matter what, you know?
Yeah.
And so,
and I found that people like multi-inspector firms at some point along the journey of becoming, going from a solopreneur to a business owner with a team, is getting a real good handle on that seasonality thing, right? Because inspectors don't make the same money every month. And if you're a solo, that becomes a lot harder if you don't plan. That's like another reason to look at your financials monthly at the whole year.
Right.
Put the whole year in front of you by month, because you're going to have months where there's just lots of money, but you need to know how much to save for the slow months. You need to know what they are, when they're coming, how much it's going to be. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In my market, we say Thanksgiving to Super Bowl is what I tell my crew. Thanksgiving to Super Bowl is our slow season. And so just get your head around that one, save your money. And, and same thing, by the time Thanksgiving hits, I better have a nest egg, saved up so that I make sure I have enough cash to cover it.
Picking up market share during that period. Because I think I surmise that their regular inspector who is a solo is so slow, they may need to just kind of hang up their hat for a few months and go take a temporary job or something that pays a little bit better in the winter. And the agents, even though there's less business, there still are home selling. People still need inspections. And so what I'm seeing is some of the more successful people I've worked with are I see their market share spike right then. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. All right. So we in IAB, we have these conversations about how your company is in different departments. Yeah. And as a solo guy, sometimes it's hard to wrap your mind around this, but the sooner you can get your mind around the idea of you have different departments in your company, even though you're wearing every single hat as the solo guy, once you get your head around the idea of those different departments, when you're hiring people, it makes a really clear framework of who's doing what. Yes. But then more importantly, it helps on the number side to go, oh, I need to make sure these different departments are in budget, not just the entire company is in budget. Right. And so we break it down in IEB with, we have our field services department, which is people in trucks doing things. Yeah. We have our operations, which is people in the office answering phones, booking inspections, taking care of contracts, taking care of payments, taking care of all the back end operations. And basically operations sets it up so that field services has everything that they need to do while they're out in the field. So when the inspector leaves in the morning, he has all the access codes to get into every building. All the paperwork is done. Everything is all set up and ready to go for him. And then we have growth, which is our growth department, which is marketing, sales, retention. Essentially, growth keeps the phone ringing. Operations answers the phone and gets all the paperwork and all the systems and processes tied together so that field services can go out and execute flawlessly. Yeah. And so we have those three major departments. So I would love to chat with you just a little bit about what percentages of your budget should be going to which departments. And then of course, you always have to think about profit. Like, okay, profit is its own category in the budget as well. And you have to be intentional about that, because if you're not intentional about your profit, you go, oh, this is how much profit I need to make. You almost have to reverse engineer from profit first backwards into the other areas, right?
I like to look at it that way. I like to start with the desired profit number, and then work it backwards.
Yep.
And I've seen lots of models work different ways. There's also another category that we sometimes use. It's called indirect. And that is if you are an owner, but you're not technically working in any of the other three departments. You're sort of like you're fortunate enough to have built your business where it can run without you if you want to go take a couple weeks off and go to the desert or something, you know. And so your salary and your expenses we like to put there so that it doesn't skew the other ones. It's really important for your salary to be in whatever department where you're doing the majority of your work. This is really important because owners sometimes don't take salaries. Sometimes they just take distribution. And so that's going to make you look a lot more profitable than you are.
Yeah.
Your services division, if you're in the field generating revenue, but you're not paying yourself, and my services department's running like 25%. Well, your model is skewed, right?
Right.
I'm a big fan of paying yourself modestly if you need to do it that way. Paying yourself, putting you in the business where you are. Also, if you have a spouse or a family member working in the business and they're not taking a paycheck, your model is skewed. And what you don't know is, like, what if the spouse says, okay, I've done this for 10 years. I'm ready to stop working in the inspection business. You don't, all of a sudden you start paying someone to do what they were doing and it breaks, the model breaks. So this is what we call a model. How much of every dollar goes to those buckets, those services, operations, and growth. And I'm not a fan of saying that you must do this, this, and this. And there are reasons why. Every model is different. The only rule, so to speak, is that we don't like to see that services number go over 50%. So if you're doing a 50% split, we have all those other taxes and things you and I just talked about. So think about starting with 50%, doing lab fees, fuel, vehicle, NACHI memberships, all workers' comp, all of that. Then that's what you have available to spend on payroll. And IEB's got tools. It's got that inspector cost calculator that Greg shared with you back in 2017. Like, I updated it and I made it like a plug and play tool that can go with the three different pay methods, like flat rate, hourly, or commission split. If that number stays 50% or under, you're ahead of most people.
Well, I think that tool is for free on the website. You don't even have to be a member of IEB.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're,
I think that's the original is still there. I think if you're a member, you get the one. I think that lets you
get the better one.
The three different pay models, and you can play.
Yeah.
With like,
but there's a free tool. Yeah. For if someone's listening and like, I'm not part of IEB, I'm curious about this. We have a free tool right on our website to help with the starter of it. Yeah. And then of course, once you're inside as a member, you get a much deeper, more robust version of it. Yeah. But there's a simple tool on the front side for free. You can just kind of plug in your basic numbers and make sure you're in the right framework.
Good. So let's get to what to spend on marketing. Some of these percentages, they change as you grow, and they change according to your strategy for getting business. So if your services department is running right at 50%, that's great. When you get to like 6 inspectors, you need to hire an inspector manager. That thing's going to go up about 55, 56%. And so, we can say 50% is great, but sizes of business really make a difference. And you're going to hit different milestones in your business, and that's going to change. Marketing is another one. Are you just getting started? Are you just getting started in business, or are you thinking about expanding to a neighboring market? Those things are expensive. And in your marketing department, there are 2 activities. There is acquisition, getting new agents or new clients if you want to do direct to consumer. And then there is retention, holding on to the people that you've got so that they can use you again and again and again. Acquisition is more expensive than retention. So I see models where somebody's in high acquisition mode, they're going to be spending more. Like I had clients where we built the model for them at about 14%. I have seen people spend 3% and be very successful. And this is including marketing people, right? Like total all in for the department. Really depends on what your strategy is. Yeah. I've seen people spend a lot more on marketing because they have fully automated their online scheduler and they don't have quite the people in the office expenses that others do. So they can run very lean in their operations department. So what I kind of like to say is, if you want to have a goal to put your services department at 50% and you want 20% For profit, that leaves 30 for marketing and operations, or for growth and operations. You got 30% there. You go 15, 15, you go 10, 20, whatever you want to do according to your model. In IEB, I created a video training and a tool and a chart called Lanes and Guardrails. It is proprietary. It is the intellectual property of Erin Waltrip and IEB together. And we spent a lot of time building this. And Lanes and Guardrails doesn't tell you, you must spend this. You must spend this. It tells you for marketing or growth, perhaps you want to be between 8 and 12%. Now, if you want to go below 8%, that's great, as long as you know why and it's a strategy. And if you're over 12%, that's okay, as long as it was your plan. But if you're over 12% because you're spending so much on marketing and you don't even know where your dollars are going, then you're outside of the guardrail.
Yep. No, I think that's great. Yeah. You mentioned, owner pay in there. You mentioned kind of the different categories. And so like, if you look at my numbers, the percentages are a little bit skewed. My services department has been in like the 43 to 45% range for field services, which is good. It's a healthy range, and the guys make great money. And so everybody's happy. My operations department is, right around that 22% for operations.
Yeah.
And then growth, if you look, I'm a single digit number on growth. And here's why, is because as the owner, I actually am the one who's the face of the organization still.
Yep.
And so the numbers, if you look at my actual numbers, my profit percentage is high and my growth is low. But when it really balances out, if you had to hire somebody to replace me on the growth and marketing side of things, then obviously it would fall right back into line of what it should be. And so hopefully, like, that's my idea is in building the business. Right. And so I'm a single digit growth guy, like you say, like 3%, 4%, like I'm down there, but that's because I'm the guy running out to all the realtor events. I'm the ones that are, that's my personality, right? I'm super social. I'm super out there. Out of everything in the entire business, that's the part I love. And I feel most comfortable doing sales and marketing. And so for me, it's like, that's where I love to be. Whereas other business owners, that they don't like that necessarily. And so they want to have an employee doing that. And maybe they're more into like the gears of the operations. And so the owner's time is going into the operations. Maybe your operations percentage looks low, but are you factoring in your time as the owner, like you're saying, into your numbers?
Yeah.
Right. Because if you look, Matt made this much profit. Like, I made this much profit in the business. The reality is I also spent this much time in my growth department. So, in the world of Elevate, you have to kind of look at it like you're saying, and what's the model, what's the strategy, and as the owner, where's your time the most valuable?
Yeah.
You meet some guys. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Somebody asked me, I was at Inspection Fuel last year and I was giving teaching a module on maximizing the value of your business. Cause I work in acquisitions. And so there was a solo operator that asked me a question. They said, it's just me and I'm doing absolutely everything. How am I going to grow this business when I'm just so busy doing everything? And I said, get real clear on what your superpower is. Because if your superpower is the marketing, focus your efforts there and hire somebody to answer the phones and do all the other stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for some guys, they're so technically proficient in home inspections. They're just so brilliant when it comes to the building systems and all the technology and everything, that they're going to be probably like the lead inspector. They're going to oversee the field services department and make sure that quality is super, super high because that's their superpower. Yeah. And so for me, that's not my superpower, which is funny because I was the original guy doing everything. And now the quality of our inspections is way better having other people do it. And I kind of look back and I'm like, dang, like that was probably kind of rough in the beginning, I didn't realize the quality may not have been what it needed to be, but Matt, now it's so much further. And people will say, oh, Matt, you're the owner. We'd love to have you come and do that inspection. I'm like, no, you don't. The company got better when I got out of the field. I promise you.
You show up at the beginning and kiss the baby and then take off.
Yeah. That's funny. And so, okay, so we've got some general framework ideas of percentages and profits. You've touched on this, and this is something that I hear amongst other inspectors talking all the time is maybe a guy's getting a little older or they're kind of getting frustrated with their job. When you start losing passion for your business, it doesn't matter how old you are, when you start losing passion for the business and you're like looking forward to the next chapter that's not doing this business, guys start talking about, well, maybe I could sell this and go do something else. And maybe it's I'm retiring and I want to go just live on the beach. Or maybe they have some other project they're excited about and they're like, I lost passion for the inspection business and I want to sell it. Yeah. You currently work in Launchpad, which is an acquisition company within the home services realm. And I think primarily in the inspection industry, or is there's other things you guys? Yeah. How do you go about, let's say a guy's like thinking like that he's in that season of maybe I want to get rid of this. What are some of the numbers that he should be focusing on his business to make it like look pretty for an acquisition company to go like, oh, this looks like a good deal for us?
Yeah, this is great. And this is like very on the top of my head too, because when I was at Inspection Fuel, that was what I talked about. What are the things I can do today? Even if you don't plan on making a change, it still doesn't hurt to be ready in case you suddenly decide you need to. Like there are things you can do today. I've worked with in individual investors. Like before I joined Launchpad, I worked with individual investors who never had an inspection, never did a home inspection. They just wanted to invest in the business and looked at diligence for them. I've done mergers of two people across town. I've worked on those projects, and I've done acquisitions where somebody wants to buy somebody across the state so they can expand their footprint. And then I've done this for Launchpad. So all in, I've been part of about 50 of these deals. And so we're looking, it depends on who the buyer is. Like if you're looking, somebody like individual investor, they're going to want freedom and profit. If they're an investor, they don't want to come in and grow the business and figure out and make it more efficient, right? They want time, freedom. So you need to be very profitable, and the business has to have really good SOPs and virtually run itself. Launchpad, we grow by not just acquiring companies, but then growing them once we've acquired them. And the one thing that allows that to happen is team. That's the one thing that allows that to happen is team. So a really good, strong team culture, the right person. What was the book about the right person on the bus, driving the bus? Was that Who? It starts.
The Who, Not How?
Who, Not How. Yeah. But the right person on the bus. That's an amazing thing you can do for your business. Like if you want to walk away from your business, can you make yourself as obsolete as possible?
Yeah.
Right. That's a really big one for maximizing the value of your business. And get your house in order. I've done 50 of these deals. I've coached 100 inspection businesses. I've seen some pretty messy financials. I've seen some stuff, man. What it is, I liken this to like staging your house for sale. Like, there's all the clutter there and like pictures everywhere and, suitcases and like tchotchkes and, like you can't even see the house because of all the stuff.
Yep.
And then a stager comes in and they present the house so that somebody who wants to buy it can see it in its best light and truly see what's there. That's the best thing you can do if you're making a plan for exiting your business in any way, whether you're retiring or you just want to try something different, or you've got a lot of people I talk to have a side business and they sell their home inspection business so that they can focus on the other business.
Right.
Clean financials are really, really key. And I don't mean from the tax standpoint. I mean from a like you talked about. What is your field services division running? Like that's like the first thing we want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all investors are going to want to look at those things. Anybody who's buying any company, you're going to want to know what is is this organized? Like, is this organized in any sort of process that makes sense?
Yeah.
It's so I've actually owned 10 different companies. And I've built some from the ground up and sold them. Some of them I built from the ground up and they were worthless. And because I didn't build them the right way, and I got into businesses and business models that were not sustainable. So I've had some that were like, okay, it's just treading water. And yeah, there's money coming in, but there's money coming out. And I didn't build, I learned some hard lessons along the way. I got some wins and my losses in there. And so when I started my current inspection company, I didn't call it Matt Williams Inspections. I called it something different. And so I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and every city has a nickname, like Chicago is the Windy City, and right. Yeah. And so different cities have different nicknames. Ours is the Duke City because it was the Duke of Albuquerque that settled. And so they call it.
I was wondering why it was called Duke City. Okay.
Yeah, so Duke City is Albuquerque is the Duke of Albuquerque. Albuquerque came from Spain. He came over and was a conquistador and established this city under his name. And so, it was the Duke of Albuquerque. And so then, now it's Duke City. So if you drive around my town, you'll see a lot of companies that embrace that. And so you'll see Duke City this and Duke City that. And so I did Duke City inspections. And so I named it something that was very hometown feel. So it, everybody that's in the market, it feels like it's locally owned and operated, which it is. But so anyhow, I named it the right way and I set it up from the very beginning with the exit in mind. And I've done this now a couple of times with different businesses, but this one was very intentional, exit in mind, even if I never sell it. Right. And so along the way, learning about, okay, from IEB and you from inside of IEB, learning, here's how your financials should be structured in this kind of an industry to make sure that it's it's able to be bought or sold at some point in time. Yeah. And because the reality is I'm not going to own this business forever. Nobody ever will. Like you might own it till the day you die, but somebody else is going to have to deal with it after that.
Yeah.
And so if your kids don't want to run it, they're going to want to sell it. And everything you worked for will be worth nothing if it's too messy, right? You got to get it clean and running right. And so you get the right people on the right bus, you get the numbers the right way. And so I've been pretty intentional on this business, making sure that I've organized it the right way to make it something that's worth something. Am I trying to get rid of it right now? No, I'm not. Like, I love my business. It's cranking along. It's doing really well, but the day's going to come, and I don't know when that is, where it's going to be like, I'm excited about some new thing in my life and I'm going to want to get rid of it. And if I've done it right, then it's easy to get rid of it. Yeah, and so I think building your business financially and putting your numbers right, like you're talking about on the front end while you're in the process of it, because you never know what's going to happen. You might get a diagnosis and realize this is life altering and I need to sell my business now. And if you kept it in order, if you kept your house in order the whole time, you don't have to do a lot of work and it's worth more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas you get that diagnosis and you're like, I want to sell my business right now. But if you haven't done the work and kept it in the right order, now it's a lot harder to deal with it.
Yeah. Wally and I call that option ready. Your business is
option ready.
Option ready.
I love, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it option ready. You never know. And sometimes somebody might knock on your door and you weren't even thinking about selling it. And someone might knock on your door and say, hey, would you be interested in selling your business?
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I talk to a lot of people who were initially, no, thanks, I don't even want to have the conversation. And then once they go through the process, they're like, wow, I think my life might change and this is looking really good for me, And so
yes,
it is fun. It is fun for me to talk to so many people who are considering change in their life. We also have people at Launchpad who have joined the corporate level, which has been really interesting to see how their lives look different now.
Well, Wally Conway is a great example, right? He had his inspection company out in Florida and it was doing well. And he was kind of hitting that season in life. He was already doing public speaking. He had already been getting more involved in like inspiring and leading others and coaching others. And then when the Launchpad situation, he and I have talked about this a little bit, and now he works for Launchpad in the corporate office and he gets to do what he loves doing, what he's so good at. And so he was able to sell his business to Launchpad and join Launchpad on the executive level or on the team level. I'm not sure where.
Yeah,
and on the team level,
joined Rob and Kat Lemoyne. They purchased.
Oh, that's right. There was the intermediate step.
And then, but Rob and Kat's team, like the opportunity that they afforded their whole team by joining Launchpad was just amazing. Josh Furman from AJF, he and his sister Allie are in leadership. They're second generation. Their parents, instead of leaving the business to their children, the business was purchased, and now their kids have immense opportunity. I say kids, but they're adult children. Yeah. And so it's really fun to hear people tell me what it is they want to do, post acquisition. Like Gary Sloan. I don't know if you ever met Gary Sloan and Kay Sloan, but they play pickleball. They're retired. They're having a ball. Like, it's really fun for me to get to see people on the next, start the next chapter, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. And that's That's something that, as I've had a few transitions in my life from different careers, different things that I've been doing, a coach of mine years ago told me, like, you don't want to leave from something, you want to leave to something. Because if you don't have a vision for what your future is going to look like, you're going to get lost. And you sell your business, and I meet guys like this, and maybe you've met people like this too, where they built a great business, and then they sell it and they're super excited about it, but their entire identity is wrapped up in that business.
Yes.
And then when they sell the business, they feel lost. Yeah. And then they kind of wander in life a little bit. And whenever you talk to them, they talk about their identity is wrapped up in the business they had built and sold 3, 5, 10 years ago. And they never really developed a new personal identity of who they are and what their new season of life is. And so for anyone thinking about selling or transitioning out of a business, get yourself in a place where you're transitioning to something that you're excited about.
Yeah, that's good. That's a question I ask everybody during our initial diligence interview. And I think they're surprised, that my first question is like, how do I get my hands on your P&L? No, my first question is, what do you see? Why are you having this conversation? What do you see yourself doing in the future? What does it look like for you? What does ideal look like for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm actually, so 4 years ago. Yeah. Wow. Okay. 4 years ago, I owned 4 different businesses
at the same time.
Yeah. At the same time, I had 4 different businesses. At the same time, I was pastoring a church. So I was running a nonprofit. The church was a few hundred people. So it was a good sized church with multiple staff there. So it was kind of like running 5. I owned 4 of them, running 5 businesses at the same time. And I mean, my life was a little bit chaotic, to say the least. And then there was a lot of other stuff going on in my life. And I kind of had a whole reset moment of like, I need to get rid of a lot of things. And so I got rid of everything and just put everything back just down to the home inspection business and just focus everything there. And I've taken 4 years now of just kind of getting myself recentered, because I kind of was spread too thin. Yeah. And so all I do, so I don't pastor, I don't have my gym anymore. I got rid of the gym. I got rid of the moving company, the construction business, all that other stuff. I just do home inspections. Yeah. And what's happened because of the IEB community and then this podcast, running the podcast, I was doing that at the same time as well. And so I got the inspection business and the podcast. Well, what has kind of turned for me is I do a lot of public speaking now at events and conferences. I'm running different entrepreneurial retreats now with different business owners. I do a lot of like group coaching, personal coaching. And so my life has really leaned into this whole nother side of my life that's really opened up over the last couple of years, and it's really been growing. And so in the world of like acquisition, transition, when the day comes that I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to sell the business, I already know what I want to do. Right. Yeah. And I'm already starting to lean into that. So that hopefully when the day comes of like, yeah, maybe that's, I don't know. I don't want to put timelines on things, but at some point in time, if it's like, yeah, I get tired of inspections and I want to move on to something else, I've already built something that I'm ready to like move into that next chapter of life.
You should always have the options ready for you. Really should.
Yep. Option ready. I love that phrase. I have worked really hard over the last few years to make my life option ready and to make sure that it's in that place. And a lot of that's the guidance of you and IEB and making sure that my financial house is in order on the business. And when people are looking at selling a company, a lot of times they talk about multiples, right? They'll say, what's the multiple off the bottom line? What is like a range that you see? I know there's a lot of variables in that, but like what's kind of the range that you see happening?
0 to 6, really.
0 to 6.
Because you might have $1 million of revenue and $200,000 of profit. Most people forget that there are numbers that get added to that profit. It's something called adjusted EBITDA. And it is things in the business that don't necessarily relate to the business. Like a prime example would be like, let's say you brought in a mindset coach to coach you personally for a month. Valid business expense, probably not an expense that would come along with the business upon sale. So there are things like that. If the owners are leaving, if the owners are staying, all sorts of things can make that number change. It's actually my job to help people get to that highest number. Like it's a service that I do. Like I want to see the true, like I stage the business so that its true profitability is evident. The multiple depends on all the numbers behind that top line number, behind that $1 million number. The multiple affects that, is affected by that. And all the numbers behind that number are growth rate. Are you growing 2 million? and just got there and passed it, or were you at 1.5 million and now you're down to 1? Your growth.
Oh, right. Trajectory.
Right. The most recent performance is the most impactful. A lot of people tried to use their performance in 2021 to sweeten some deals, and that was everybody did great in 21. So
sure.
Your market share, and not necessarily what it is, but how is it trending?
Yep.
Are you in a market that's geographically beneficial to the person who's looking to purchase you? So, from 0 to 6, there's an average, but nobody's average. There's always something that's going to either pull it up or pull it down.
Got it. Yeah, I didn't realize it would get up to 6. I'd always thought it was somewhere between 2 and 2.5.
The way I liken it is, you're going to buy an inspection company across town from Albuquerque, and you're going to pay for that company. How many years do you want to wait before you break even and start making profit?
Absolutely.
Because a multiple of 6 means you're going to wait 6 years for that thing it's going to pay for itself in 6 years. And you might be willing to wait 6 years if that bottom line number is several $1 million.
Yeah. Well, and the other side too is if I'm an inspection business and I'm going to buy another inspection business, I can instantly make things way more efficient.
Yes.
Because I've got 3 in-house operations people and they have 2 in-house operations people, but it doesn't take 5 to run it all together. It only takes 4. Right. So now I can cut some of that out of the operations on the other company. My marketing budget on company 1 and company 2 combined, I don't need all of that money for marketing. Yeah. Maybe I can get more efficient. So there's efficiency and scale.
Instead of taking those 5 people and bringing them down to 4, turn the gas on the marketing, get more business, and you don't need to hire more people to service your growth.
Absolutely.
That's how I prefer to see things, right? Because the people are what make it tick.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you can get like way more efficient with things, and then you can so sometimes it depends who's buying it. Whereas it might be worth more to that guy to grow his market share in the market versus some guy who is just looking to park money somewhere and just trying to buy a service company and just happens, maybe I'll buy a home inspection company, I don't know, and just wants to buy a single standalone business. His numbers and the way he looks at it's going to be different too. So I do think you're right. Like the buyer is different. There's a lot of different situations. If one company's 5% market share and the other one's 5% market share, but together you might be able to get to 15 or 20 if you're combined. Like I'm on this side of town, you're on that side of town. Like there's things like that. Like I agree, like depending on who the buyer is, what the situation is, and that's where I think like a larger place like Launchpad can come into play too, where, having a central office that handles HR and bookkeeping and money and
things that I've interviewed a lot of inspection company owners, and and I always ask them, why are you having this conversation? Why are you considering an acquisition? And I would say more than 5 times out of 10, the answer is, I don't want to deal with complaints anymore. I'm tired of dealing with complaints. Like Launchpad, we've got a department that handles that for everybody.
Right.
Things like that. And as you grow, your person who was helping you in the office with the phones and doing some light clerical work may not be the right person to handle human resources or to handle more complicated financial management.
Right.
Insurance renewals, license renewals, all that kind of stuff is really, it takes a lot out of a business owner. And, we do all that. IT, digital marketing.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And because it's a larger group, you can leverage that for efficiencies. Right. Yeah. And so, like I pay a bookkeeper, right? I have to, I pay a bookkeeper and I have a CPA, right? Oh gosh, yeah, no, I know my strengths and weaknesses.
I'm also glad that the bookkeeper is not your CPA. I love CPAs, but they
no, they need to be separate.
They have a very distinct focus in what they're doing for you and the very valuable service they're doing for you. But
yes.
I prefer, personally, my work is easier when people use a bookkeeper because they tend to like things in a way that they're more buckets. Because on your taxes.
And my bookkeeper is one of the vendors that is at IEB. Yeah. And so that bookkeeper understands the inspection industry specifically and understands the buckets of what I'm trying to do with the departments. And so because of that, my bookkeeper helps me keep everything organized the way I want it and the way the industry wants to see it. And so I have my bookkeeper doing that, and my CPA is a tax strategist. It's not just to put the numbers in the right boxes. It is very much like, okay, what are the pathways written in the tax code to make sure we maximize this thing?
And good bookkeepers can communicate that in a way that makes sense to someone like me. Let's take, for example, it's the end of the year and you've got quite a lot of cash and you've got more even than you need to get through this slow season. And you want to minimize your tax hit. So you want to buy some things for the business expenses at the end of the year. A really good bookkeeper will put that in the books under other income or other expense, prepaid rent. I want to prepay my rent in December. Good bookkeepers can put things in such a way that someone like me is like, oh, okay, I see what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have a great bookkeeper. I'm very happy with them. And then I have a great CPA that helps me with that. But then you start looking at maybe an acquisition, depending who's acquiring you. If it's a Launchpad, guess what? You have your own bookkeeping system and CPAs. That expense would not be doubled up like it is now.
Yeah.
So then my business is probably more valuable to a Launchpad type company or another company that's like that versus another individual investor. It might be worth more because they can maximize the efficiencies that the other investor may or may not be able to do.
Yeah. One other thing about multiples that comes up pretty often is the multiple is also related to how long it's going to take to pay off the business. So let's just say you had a key employee that wanted to buy your business, but your business is worth X dollars today, but they don't have X dollars in the bank. They're going to take 4 or 5 years to pay you. The multiple goes higher, right? Because it's a risk for you. It's a very big risk for you that they may not be able to run it as well as you, and will they be able to pay you back? And so, multiples go up with risk as well.
Absolutely. And I have a friend in the business that actually did that. He sold it to some employees and then the employees weren't able to run it as well as the previous owner was, and it struggled, and the whole business actually ended up going out of business. And so then the owner lost out because he did some owner financing. It was a split between some owner financing and maybe some other sources of financing. So he got some cash up front, but then he had anyhow, he ended up losing some money on that owner financing because of the way the whole deal went down. And so because of that, there's more risk. You hear about that happening in lots of industries where the previous owner does some of the financing on the deal, and then the new ownership may or may not be able to maintain what he had built or she had built.
This is why I'm a big fan. Even before I joined Launchpad, when I was getting into the mergers and acquisitions work, was I helped people make informed decisions about what it is that they're buying. And so I worked with an individual investor who didn't run inspection businesses, and they hired me because I am an expert in the industry to look at a company they were going to buy, and I saved them from making a very big mistake.
I bet.
Yeah. And so I'm a big fan of getting a good team of people advising you, if you want to go through this process. Brokers, business brokers have an interest because they're going to get a piece of the price. And so if they're not an expert in the industry, they're probably going to put a bug on your ear that the business, may be worth. It'd be like a real estate agent, that really, really, really wants to sell your house. So they're telling you your house is worth, $100,000 more than it is.
Yeah, and they do that. That you see the realtors do that, and you see these houses they get the listing agreement, and the house hits the market a little overpriced, and everybody knows it's overpriced, but except for the guy selling it because he loved the number that listing agent put in front of him. He's like, heck yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just know that if somebody doesn't hold a designation that's a CBA, certified business appraiser, or a certified valuation analyst, CBA or CVA, if they don't have those 3 little initials after their name, they cannot say that they're doing a valuation for you. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I do is I evaluate, and I just say that, in the industry, this performance looks like this. And in the industry, the going rate is this, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. This has been a fascinating conversation about getting your financial house in order. And then the mergers acquisition side of it too is I think every owner has that in the back of their mind a little bit, like, what is my business worth? And so I think this is such a great topic. And so thank you so much for being on the show. I know somebody's listening right now is like, I need to talk to you about more. I need more information. Sure. If someone wants to get a hold of you and like, what are some ways for them to get a hold of you?
The best way is email. That's really the best way to get a hold of me. And it's just my first name, Erin, which is down there on the screen, Erin at launchpadhomegroup.com. And that's also the website if you want to go on the website and see what it is we do. That's fantastic. It's been great having you on. Oh, yeah. We're in IEB, and they're going to the Unite conference in March. Wally and I are going to be holding a lunch session on industry trends and consolidation and how that's a path to success for every operator, regardless of what their plan is. Yeah, and we are seeing that mergers, acquisitions, and consolidation happening across the industry right now. Yeah. We're seeing it all across the country, and so it is a trend that's happening, and it could be a great option for somebody. So yeah, sure could. Awesome. Well, Erin, thank you so much for being here today, and I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks in Orlando. In person, I'll look forward to it. All right. Bye.